All right. Welcome to Art Appreciation. Today we are talking about Teresita Fernandez and Jeanne, Claude, and Cristo. So there's actually three people to talk about today because Jean-Claude and Cristo are a couple who do their installation projects, and then Teresita Fernandez is a single. Somebody needs to mute. Just mute everybody here. Mute. All right, now I think everyone's muted, but if you're coming on just now, go ahead and mute yourself. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of that. I don't know if you can see my face or not. So hopefully you got my handout today and my email. So first we're gonna talk about Jean-Claude and Cristo. They are, Cristo is the male, Cristo Javachev. And he was born June 13th, 1935 in Bulgaria. And he is still living today. Oh, no. Yes. And Jeanne Claude is from Casablanca, Morocco. And she has passed away in 2009. So Cristo attended the Fine Art Academy in Bulgaria, and then he had to flee to Vienna, and he studied a semester there. And then he was at the time he was a realistic portrait painter, and he's since moved to these giant installation projects. And so he was exhibiting his work in the realistic salons, and then he met Jean-Claude and they fell in love in 1959. She was married and she left her husband to marry Cristo instead. And they moved to New York together, New York City. And that is when they started their adventure of installation artwork. Jean-Claude was born in Morocco, and her father was the general of a French army. She got her bachelor's degree in Latin and philosophy from the University of Tunis. And in 1958, again, she met Cristo, and she was working in Paris as well, or he was already working in Paris, and she wasn't really an artist at the time. It's sort of interesting. She talks about how he said, "Do you know the Louvre?" And she said, "Yes, of course," because she was growing up in Paris, and they would sneak in roller skates, and whenever the guards weren't looking, they would roller skate all over the Louvre. And she said, "Oh, it's the best floor in Paris," but she was joking because she didn't really know about the art world and what was going on with the art that was actually in the Louvre. She was paying more attention to roller skating through the Louvre, which is sort of hilarious. So that's those two people. Again, they are a couple. Originally, he was getting all the credit for the work, and then and she was known more as his manager. And then in later years, they became more of a dual couple. And the videos that I posted on the page are pretty interesting to watch how they sort of live and work together. Somebody's not muted. Let me just make sure. So I lost my train of thought. I don't know. Okay, so the thing about their work and these giant installations that they do is it comes along with a lot of permits, that they have to get to create these large-scale installations in the environment. And there's a lot of controversy over it. There's plenty of people who think that it's bad for the environment and that they shouldn't do this, and on and on and on. So there's a lot of controversy about them and their installation projects in the environment. And then the third artist we're going to talk about, so we're grouping Jean-Claude and Cristo together as one. They are a pair. And then they are installation artists who use fabric, mostly material, to cover over places and things and create this giant colorful material and space. And then we have Teresita Fernandez, who is the younger of the grouping. Although when I'm talking about installation art, it's almost impossible in art So these are both sort of contemporary artists. Somebody needs to mute themselves. I'm gonna have to figure out how to teach you guys to mute yourselves. I'm trying to mute this person, but it's not working. Okay, so please check. It's someone who's on a phone, not on a screen, I guess, or I'm not sure, but someone is making noise and I can't mute you. Okay, so Teresita Fernandez is a contemporary living artist. She was born in 1968 in Miami to Cuban immigrant parents. So actually all of these artists came from other countries and are now, well, she was born in the US, but her parents are immigrants. Okay, this is driving me crazy. I've got to mute you, whoever you are. There we go. Okay. So she was born in Miami, Florida, to Cuban immigrant family. She was raised in Miami. She talks a lot about the light in Miami and how that very much influenced her by the environment and natural things. She talks a lot about, she did a residency in Japan and she was very struck by the elegance and the way the traditional lifestyle there, and even like the light and how dark it was, the emphasis on dark objects and how that sort of looked upon as beauty in Japan, and how that compared differently to living in Miami where everything is about light and color. And not that Japanese isn't about light and color as well, Japanese architecture and things like that, but there's a whole appreciation for the darks and lights that goes on within their artifacts and their design and artwork as well. So she was the recipient of a Guggenheim, and that is the way to become a famous artist. I figured it out. You just have to win a Guggenheim and a MacArthur Fellowship, and then you're well on your way. So she. Okay, we're really gonna have to figure out. This is extremely frustrating. Okay, so Linda, you've got to mute yourself. I keep hitting your mute button and it's not working. So you hit the mute. Okay, I'm gonna hit it. You don't hit it. Okay, don't hit it. Now it's muted. Okay, so back to where we were. So these two artists are creating, what I did is I broke our sheet down today in a little bit different way. So I did exactly what it has on the handout. You have an image of the work here. I'm sorry, an explanation of the artist here. And then below we have some of the videos that you can watch or not watch. What I want to do is mute this video and play it while I tell you a little bit about this piece. Hopefully, my internet is not loving me today. Okay, well, anyway, so I broke this down a little bit different. Oh my goodness, I can still hear somebody. All right, I don't know, it's muted now. We really have to figure this out. There is a way to put your settings on when you open it, you can set your settings so that it automatically mutes you. So we need to try to figure out how to do that. So if you can check your settings when you are done with this and check how to click on mute myself when a video is started, that would be the way to go, because this is not helping me keep track of my thoughts. Okay, so I want to show this video. And what's happening here is that I found this video so interesting because Fernandez is trying to figure out how to make an installation work that represents fire. And what she's doing is she's trying to figure out, you know, what fire's doing, how it's moving, how it's changing in space. I guess my video is not going to work. And okay, now it's working. So this piece is a piece called Fire that she created, and it's a huge installation piece. This is not the piece that's showing right now, but they're going through several different works of hers. And I'm gonna have to figure out something with my internet here. This is extremely frustrating. Okay, so let's just take a look at a few of these artworks. So she's creating installation about the environment. She's creating installation about more metaphysical types of things, space and atoms, and not astrology, but astronomy and environmental objects like fire, water, metal, earth, air, things like that. And she's trying to describe them to you through art. So I think both of these artists are doing something really interesting that uses the environment that they're in, and that is called site-specific installation. So all of the artworks that these artists make are based in where they are put. So Jeanne, Claude, and Cristo don't just go out. They do go out and they find a place where they want to create the artwork, and it is specific to that location. And Teresita Fernandez is doing the same thing. So this piece right here is the fire piece. And what I was trying to show you, okay, here we go, you can see it here now, is that they went to a factory, a loom factory. Actually, I'm just gonna let it play because she says it better than I do.
Very beautiful, reflective, metallic.
Just back it up.
Although I think of myself as a conceptual artist, I'm really interested, and I give a lot of importance to the sensual and the sensorial aspect of engagement. You know, I love seducing the viewer into wanting to think about something and into wondering and taking their own explanation or fantasy onto what it is that I've made. What I was interested in was not the kind of illustration of fire or a solid sculpture about fire, but rather how I could kind of explore the behavior of fire, which is an entirely different set of problems. And oftentimes with works that end up being important for me, they kind of start out almost as a cliche in my mind. Sometimes it takes years to figure out a form that kind of harnesses the idea. The project manager that I worked with at the Fabric Workshop, whose name is Marianne Friel, she and I did a site visit to Scala Madre, which is a textile factory that used to be in Long Island City. And what we saw were just humongous factory rooms full of mechanical looms that were weaving very beautiful, reflective, metallic fibers and mechanical, so they were just like moving and you could see through them. And we realized on that visit that that was what the piece was, and that if we could just make a big ring that was basically like a loom, we would have the piece, and that the transparency would be inherent in just its whatness. If you walk around the piece, you'll see that there's this very dynamic thing that happens whenever there's any movement, whether you're the person that's moving or whether you're still and someone else is moving. So one of the things I was interested in was the idea of persistence of vision. So for example, when you watch a film being projected, what happens is it's a series of stills. You have one still that's projected, and then shutter closes, and then the next image appears. When that shutter closes, the first image still exists on the back of your retina as a kind of ghost image. And this is essentially what fire is based on. So each little vertical silk string is like a shutter closing. And that's what causes that kind of flickering, is this vertical interruption over and over again.
Okay, so that gives you a really good idea of what she's working on in that piece. And I found this absolutely fascinating because I literally just made my own installation piece, which was my first installation that I've ever made, and I didn't know that this piece existed at the time. And then, and a few of you came to my show that was at Mesa College, but basically it was a triangle, not a big ring. And we strung strings of yarn, 400. It's still not muted. Oh my gosh, guys. I can't mute this person. Someone on the phone with the last numbers. Okay, there we go. Unmute. Okay, now you're muted. Okay, so I had no idea about this piece of art, and I knew of her work because I had looked it up before, because one of the students actually recommended that I teach this class. So do know that if you have a really good recommendation of an artist or a good compare and contrast of artists, I will probably put them up here, because it's not easy for me to think of all these ideas. So I'd love to hear in the comment section your ideas of artists that you would love to learn about. So, or just shoot me an email and say, hey, I'd love to learn about these artists. So one of the students recommended this artist. I had not heard of her. I'd heard of Jeanne, Claude, and Cristo, but I hadn't heard of Teresita Fernandez. And immediately when I looked her up, I mean, I can see the similarities. They're both using the environment. They're covering things, like she's covered these trees here in this piece with giant, I don't know if it's mesh or plastic, but like what a beautiful way to work with the environment. Now, I mean, I don't know how the environmentalists feel. In fact, I know that they hate it sometimes. And there was huge fights and courtroom fights with Jeanne, Claude, and Cristo over their artworks and trying to get these permits. But back to this fire piece and what she's talking about with the movement of the string. So I went and strung 400, well, actually it ended up being 800 strings back and forth, and it had the same effect as this piece did. And really the source was also the loom, which was my inspiration, because I was thinking about how do we get back to like the basic form here. And the original idea was we were going to have people like weave pieces back into it, but then we saw just how beautiful it was with just the string, and exactly what she's talking about with the light moving through. As you move across it, it changes and moves and looks like fire. So that's really exciting, and the colors change. So I don't know, there's something about being an artist and just you find artists who are doing something so similar sometimes, and you know that you didn't know about them or copy them, and then you both have the same idea, and or maybe multiple people have the same idea. And there's another fiber artist, actually. If I go to the, I wonder if the Sheila Hicks, oops, excuse me, the Sheila Hicks lesson, no, that one's hiding right now. But in that show, another fiber art, really interesting. So if you care more about Teresita and her sculptures, you can look at some of her other installation work. I guess I didn't post as many art. I thought I posted up here, and a few of them are not showing up right now. So this is another piece that she's done, completely different materials. Sometimes she uses metals, sometimes she uses fiber. And I would say Jeanne, Claude, and Cristo almost always use materials. So that's another thing we could talk about. Like these two pieces are the main comparison between Jeanne, Claude, and Cristo and Teresita Fernandez. So again, I've put in the same information that I gave you earlier in the handout there. And then there's just a video that I'm also gonna expand for you here and show it for 2 minutes so that you get a sense of what they're doing. And they're throwing material. They covered an entire, I don't know how to say it, Reichstag in Berlin with 100,000 meters of silver gray fabric and 15 kilometers of blue ropes. And
painting is flat surface. With a sculpture, the surface is elaborated by the artist. You can go around, experience that different surface of the sculpture. All that space is entirely designed by the artist. Now, what myself and Jean-Claude do, we borrow that space and create gentle disturbance for 2 days. And of course, many people try to stop us. the most difficult part is still today the permits. Everything in the world belongs to somebody. They know 1 square meters in the world do not belong to somebody. Of course, the drawings, the preparatory study of the arsenic is about the arsenic. 14 days in June, July 1995 was the Reichstag graft. We have the biggest amount of visitors, 5 million people in 2 weeks. And that participatory public is unique. Actually, people create the energy, anticipation was impossible to orchestrate or invent. Everything that what is inherent to that space to become part of the work of art. This is why we love to do this project that way, because it's the real expedition and the incredible energy of human relation in space. All these projects, they're absolutely, totally irrational. The world can live without them. They exist only me and Jeanne would like to have them. And don't think they should exist. They cannot be bought. Nobody can charge tickets. Nobody can own them. Nobody can use them. All that is the power of this project. Absolutely expression of artistic freedom.
Okay, so what he's talking about is make money off of their projects. They are making money, they make money from the sales of the images of the work, and they make money from, sometimes they'll give away pieces of the material and rope after the show comes down, after the work comes down, but they don't, specifically, they can't sell this installation, right? So they make money from the photographs, and then they basically put everything back into another project. And these projects run in the millions of dollars here to buy this cord and to have all these people who help install and create these projects. It's not just them, it's thousands of workers, hundreds of workers working on these projects. They have donors, they have people who invest in these projects, and then they put the money back into the project. So here's a picture right here. You can see Jean-Claude is literally walking on water. So what they did is they made this floating piece of material down, where is this one? I don't remember where this one is, but you can click on these articles if you want to read about them and know exactly what the location is. So the reason I did the video the PowerPoint a little different today is I wanted you to be able to understand that you really do want to click on these articles if you're inspired by any of these. Click on these articles, just click on it, and then you can read the story of how those pieces were made and what they were doing during that time. So this is a pretty great article. So I want you to read these if you have time, if you're interested in the works. I really don't know how many people actually click on all these videos and articles that I add in. So please do let me know if you do click on those. So let's look at a few of their pieces of work. So this is the building that they covered. And then this one here, and here's a picture of them out working together. And it was really, there's another video that I put up here, the Nomad one. This one. Wrapped Coast, or the Nomad of Art, and they're both they're delightful videos of them working together and how stressful it was, and they're trying to get these projects going, and just them absolutely immersed in their projects and the importance of what they're doing for themselves. And like they say, you know, we want these beautiful pieces of art in the world, but obviously other people do too, because this one right here, which was the Gates, it was called the Gates, and it was in Central Park in New York City. Oh no, that looks like DC, excuse me. DC, and it was only up for 14 days, and there was 4 million people who walked through that thing to experience it. So obviously there's something going on that people these pieces and want these pieces around and in their lives. And this another floating piece on top of water. So again, I don't know the environmental impact of these pieces. I know they don't stay up very long. I know that they're pretty controversial with some people. And some of the last pieces that he was trying to get permits on, he just said, forget it. You know, there's too much backlash on this. And I do think that his wife was a really big fighter And if you watch the Nomad video, she's really fighting for these permits to go through, and she had a strong voice and was good at talking about what the passion of the project was and the reason for making it and all of these things. So I will open the class up for discussion now. If anyone wants to type into the chat box your feelings on either of these artists or artworks. Installation is something that's pretty new to me to be studying. Although I feel like this is the direction that art is going. So I want everybody to be highly aware of that artwork like this that is in the environment, you know, public art is where the funds are. A lot of times, you know, you can get good funds for creating projects. But I've noticed a lot of artists are making more and more site-specific installations like these. I've done a few other projects on artists like Orly Genger and Sheila Hicks, who also do somewhat similar environmental sculpture or installation art. So if you have any opinions or thoughts, what you can do is just click right here on the comments section and leave a comment. In this case, I don't know that anyone's going to be creating any giant public specific installation, but if you want to, you can. And if you want to leave a comment of a site-specific installation that you've seen, you can do that too. I also just wanted to mention that my comments is not working, but it will because my internet is slow. But I hope everyone goes and check out at the Liberty Station. They have a new public art commission project and several artists. There's some new big sculptures out there in Liberty Station. A few of my friends' artworks. Michelle Montjoy is one, and Jason, I can't think of his last name right now. So here's the comment section. So feel free to come over here and hit this pink button right here and leave us a comment on your thoughts of Teresita Fernandez and Jean-Claude and Cristo. Again, I'm sorry that there was many times that I had to stop and couldn't then get my train of thought back. So if you can figure out how to pause yourself or mute yourself when you come on, and I'll try to figure out how to make sure everyone's muted when they come on as well, maybe we can get a little more smooth lesson going. Sorry about that. So one more thing I just want to point out is these buttons, you can hover over them and get a drop-down box, but you can also just click on them to go to the resources. So some people were a little confused about that. So you can click and do a hover drop down, and both things go to the same place or different places. So try clicking different buttons, get familiar with the main page, and let me know if you have any questions or you want to send in a chat or a comment. I'd love to hear from you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.